Hi everyone, Aiden here with etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at and be showing you how to install the Konig K-Summit XL Snow Tire Chains on our 2022 Ford Maverick. And these are going to be on tire size 225, 65, R17, and per the owner's manual on the rear tires. One of the other things Ford mentions in their owner's manual when looking at snow tire chains is the limited wheel well clearance, both in the wheel well here around the tire, but also with some of our suspension components in the back. And in some cases, it can make tire chains incompatible because if we have too big of a link or pieces that wrap around the back of our tire, they might interfere with those suspension components or with the wheel well, causing problems with our vehicle that we don't want. Where these are unique is the fact that all of the chain sits on the tire tread and nothing sits behind the tire, so it eliminates that suspension problem entirely, and everything is going to be either on the tire or out in front of it, where it's really not going to be in the way of anything. It does all this by clamping onto one of the lug nuts of your wheel and ratcheting in and just constantly pulling itself closer onto the tire, keeping all of these links on the tread and preventing them from falling off. It's a pretty unique system. It is a little bit more involved to install, but we'll show you that later. If you're worried about the clearance though, this is the solution for you. Now it's a pretty small link size and you're pretty much gonna have constant contact from the chain on the roads that will help your ride quality quite a bit. And in the middle between these links at periodic intervals, you're gonna have these traction plates. These are designed to break up ice chunks and just give you extra grip when driving around on the road. So even in icy conditions, these should perform pretty well. These do come in a kit of 2 and have a pretty nice carrying case included. They pack away relatively neatly, so when you're done using them and you've let them dry off, there's plenty of space to keep them organized and in your car so they're ready to go in that emergency situation if you need them. One thing I will say about these is while they're nice that they don't interfere with anything, the install process is a lot more involved, and it's maybe not one that I would want to install in an emergency situation because it's more involved. If you're just doing it in your driveway before you leave, then sure, that's gonna probably be okay. But if you're on the side of the road, I wouldn't wanna mess with all this, but that's for you to decide. We'll walk you through the install process so you can see how it's done. And if you do get these, I strongly recommend trying this out at home once or twice before you find yourself in that situation where you need them. Let's check out the install. Now, the first step of your installation is gonna be determined based on your tire size. With ours today, we do need to remove one stud, and that's just gonna be these pieces in the middle with the yellow spacers. Depending on your tire size, like I mentioned, you might have to remove 2, you might have to remove none of them. It just depends, so just check the instruction manual. But you can take this flower-shaped tool, slide it over the nut on one end, and take your small Allen key on the other, and start to unthread that nut. Basically just removing this spacer and letting us get a slightly nicer fit over this particular tire size. When that pops off, there is going to be a spring, so just keep track of all these pieces in case you ever need to transfer it to a different vehicle or something. But we'll set those to the side because they aren't going to get reused, and now we've got a little bit of extra room to work with there. Now we can take the whole chain and start to drape it over the tire. This whole thing's going to be a little unwieldy, but just do your best to get that wrapped around the tread and keep it centered as much as you can. So right around there is looking pretty good so far. We will need to eventually drive forward to get this installed the rest of the way, but right there is looking pretty good. And we can take this piece here and let it clamp onto one of the lug nuts. Now out of the box it had the shortest bolt and the shorter spacer installed, and that's perfectly fine for our application today. And it doesn't really matter which lug nut this goes over, but whenever you do place it over and start to kind of hand tighten it, you just want this part pointing inward. And then we can take the included tool to tighten it down the rest of the way and make sure that it clamps onto the lug nut securely. And with everything fitting as good as I can get it, I'm going to go to the ratcheting mechanism on the outside and just start to tighten that up. That way we've got some pressure being applied inward and the chain is trying to pull itself onto the tire. That way when we drive forward, the rest of this that isn't fully wrapped around will just naturally want to sit on the tire. Now once I did roll over them the first little bit, I spent a bit of time and really pushed these into place, and after that rolled back and forth over them a couple more times. I think really once you get to this point, the more distance you have to drive on them, the more they're going to want to self-correct and center themselves. But in the shop here, we just don't have that much space. But overall, we are getting a pretty solid fit. So at this point, you'd want to just install the other side. Realistically, you'd probably be doing both sides at the same time. But when both sides are done, you're ready to hit the road. But that'll do it for our look at and installation of the Konig K-Summit XL Snow Tire Chains on our 2022 Ford Maverick. Thanks for watching.